Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivarajakacharya Stotra Satasi Simad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivarajakacharya Stotra Satasi Simad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 11. And this chapter is entitled Narada's Instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam. Tadvag Vishargo Janataga Viplavo Yasmin Pratishlokam Abhadavatyapi Namanyanatasya Yashon Kirtaniyat Shrinvanti Gayanti Grananti Sadavaha Tadvag Vishargo Janataga Viplavo Yasmin Pratishlokam Abhadavatyapi Namanyanatasya Yashon Kirtaniyat Shrinvanti Gayanti Grananti Sadavaha. Someone else, please. Ladies? No, it's okay. Okay. Viplavo Yasmin Pichanti Shlokapapi. Thank you. Okay, word for word. Tat, that. Vak, vocabulary. Visarga, creation. Janata, the people in general. Aga, sins. Biplava, revolutionary. Yasmin, in which. Prati shlokam, each and every stanza. Abadavati, irregularly composed. Api, in spite of. Namamni, transcendental names, etc. Anantasya, of the unlimited Lord. Yasha, glories. Ankitani, depicted. Yat, what? Shrinvanti, do hear. Gayanti, do sing. Grinanti, do accept. Sadava, the purified men who are honest. So I'm going to read the translation, then I'm going to go back to yesterday's verse. I'm going to read that translation. Actually, I'll just read the translation from yesterday, because then that goes right into, there's a connection here between the two verses, and then this way we can connect the two. So yesterday's verse, text 10, those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows, since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode. They do not derive any pleasure there. And then today's verse. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words, directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. This is a little bit of an extensive purport. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. It is a qualification of the great thinkers to pick up the best even from the worst. It is said that the intelligent man should pick up nectar from a stock of poison, should accept gold even from a filthy place, should accept a good and qualified wife even from an obscure family, and should accept a good lesson even from a man or from a teacher who comes from the untouchables. These are some of the ethical instructions for everyone in every place without exception. Srila Prabhupada says in the next sentence, but a saint is far above the level of an ordinary man. He is always absorbed in glorifying the Supreme Lord, because by broadcasting the holy name and fame of the Supreme Lord, the polluted atmosphere of the world will change. And as a result of propagating the transcendental literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, people will become sane in their transactions. People will become sane in their transactions. Very important. While preparing this commentation on this particular stanza of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have a crisis before us. Our neighboring friend, China, has attacked the border of India with a militaristic spirit. Thanks, such an easy word. We have practically no business in the political field, yet we see that previously there were both China and India, and they both lived peacefully for centuries without ill feeling. The reason is that they lived those days in an atmosphere of God consciousness, and every country over the surface of the world was God-fearing, pure-hearted, and simple, and there was no question of political diplomacy. Just see how things are changing now as this age of Kali Yuga is progressing. There is no cause of quarrel between the two countries, China and India, over land, which is not very suitable for habitation. And certainly there is no cause for fighting on this issue. But due to the age of quarrel, Kali, which we have discussed, there is always a chance of quarrel on a slight provocation. This is due not to the issue in question, but to the polluted atmosphere of this age. Another very important point Srila Prabhupada makes there. This is not due to the issue in question, but to the polluted atmosphere of this age. Systematically, there is propaganda by a section of people to stop glorification of the name and fame of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, there is a great need for disseminating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. It is the duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world, to do all the supermost good, as well as to bring about the desired peace in the world. Because India has failed to do her duty by neglecting this responsible work, there is so much quarrel and trouble all over the world. We are confident that if the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam is received only by the leading men of this world, certainly there will be a change of heart. And naturally, the people in general will follow them. Another very important point Srila Prabhupada makes. The mass of people in general are tools in the hands of modern politicians and leaders of the people. If there is a change of heart of the leaders only, certainly there will be a radical change in the atmosphere of the world. Change of heart, Srila Prabhupada writes. Very important. We know that our honest attempt to present this literature conveying transcendental messages for reviving the God consciousness of the people in general and re-spiritualizing the world atmosphere is fraught with many difficulties. Our presenting this matter in adequate language especially a foreign language, will certainly fail. And there will be so many literary discrepancies despite our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of society will still accept this due to its being an honest attempt to glorify the Almighty God. When there is a fire in a house, the inmates of the house go out to get help from the neighbors who may be foreigners, and yet, without knowing the language, the victims of the fire express themselves and the neighbors understand the need, even though not expressed in the same language. The same spirit of cooperation is needed to broadcast the transcendental message of the Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the polluted atmosphere of the world. After all, it is a technical science of spiritual values, and thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. If the techniques of this great literature are understood by the people of the world, there will be success. When there are too many materialist activities by the people in general all over the world, there is no wonder that a person or a nation attacks another person or nation on slight provocation. That is the rule of this age of Kali, or quarrel. The atmosphere is already polluted with corruption of all description, and everyone knows it well. There are so many unwanted literatures full of materialistic ideas of sense gratification. In many countries, there are bodies appointed by the state to detect and censor obscene literature. This means that neither the government nor the responsible leaders of the public want such literature. Yet it is in the marketplace because the people want it for sense gratification. The people in general want to read, that is natural instinct, but because their minds are polluted, they want such literatures. Under the circumstances, transcendental literature like Srimad Bhagavatam will not only diminish the activities of the corrupt mind of the people in general, but also it will supply food for their hankering after reading some interesting literature. In the beginning, they may not like it because one suffering from jaundice is reluctant to take sugar candy, but we should know that sugar candy is the only remedy for jaundice. Similarly, let there be systematic propaganda for popularizing reading of the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, which will act like sugar candy for the jaundice-like condition of sense gratification. When men have a taste for this literature, the other literatures which are catering poison to society will then automatically cease. We are sure, therefore, that everyone in human society will welcome Srimad Bhagavatam, even though it is now presented with so many faults, for it is recommended by such authorities as Sri Narada, who has very kindly appeared in this chapter. Wow. Om Gyanatamanandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Srila Prabhupada makes a lot of really, really nice and really important points, gives a lot of nice instruction in this particular verse. And Srila Prabhupada starts off by saying that it's the qualification of the great thinkers to pick up the best even from the worst. Take gold even from a dirty place. A qualified wife from an obscure family. And as he writes, these are some of the ethical instructions for everyone in every place, without exception. But then he goes on to say, but a saint is far above the level of an ordinary man. He is always absorbed in glorifying the Supreme Lord, because by broadcasting the holy name and fame of the Supreme Lord, the polluted atmosphere of the world will change. And as a result of propagating the transcendental literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, people will become sane in their transactions. Imagine if Srila Prabhupada didn't come to America. Imagine if Srila Prabhupada didn't translate these books. Imagine if Srila Prabhupada didn't write these purports. Srila Prabhupada spent countless hours sitting upstairs in his quarters in the early morning hours translating these books. And he had a mission, he had a goal. He was following the instruction of his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. These saintly men had a vision. And without the distribution of these books, without the preaching of Krishna consciousness, without giving transcendental literatures to others, there's no telling where this world would be at now. Now, many people can see that life is changing. Even we hear in the news of so many murders and so many public places and people going and shooting and killing so many people. Even non-devotees can understand how things are changing in this Kali Yuga. Even I had a conversation with my mother the other day. She's 81 years old. And she was remembering how back in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, there's quarrel and hypocrisy. But she said it seems to her that things are just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And of course, this is due to a godless society. For the very slightest provocations, people are fighting with each other. Just the slightest thing. Even I remember I was standing and I was just looking at someone once, and I was admiring the way the person was speaking. He actually had very good verbiage, and then he looked. This was in New York, so he looks at me, and a common cliche is, there is, "You looking at me?" And I could see it, and this has happened more than one time, You looking at me? You got a problem? No, actually, I was admiring something that you were doing. But people, because their minds are so disturbed, manda sumanda mateo, manda bhagyu pataruta. In this age of Kali, the mind is, short-lived. Memory is becoming, memory is just not good anymore amongst people. And, people they're quarrelsome and they're always disturbed. So Srila Prabhupada here in this purport is giving us a simple remedy. And that is to spread transcendental knowledge, to give Krishna consciousness to those. Not only, it starts with ourselves, but to give it to those people that are less fortunate. And we see, here even I'm looking right here in the front row, and I'm seeing, and even in the second row, I'm seeing actually all of you. As Savas Prabhu read on New Year's Day, he read all the book distribution results. phenomenal. Totally phenomenal. What not only we're doing here, not only what you all are doing here, but what our movement is doing and how things are progressing. I was speaking yesterday with one Sankirtan devotee, and I went up to him and I took his hands. So everybody just take a look at their hands for a second. Okay? On the internet, you too, please, at home. I can't see you, but I know you're looking at your hands. Okay, somebody there, they're not looking at their hands. Okay, better. Okay. That is what one of the great things that we can do with these hands, besides chanting, but we can take this valuable Srimad Bhagavatam, the valuable Bhagavad Gita, these hands can be engaged in Krishna consciousness, and we can give it to others. And it's actually not so difficult. Hello, my dear friend. Srila Prabhupada gives a very nice formula. My dear sir, you have such great qualities. Please take this book. And we even see, from hearing stories from our Sankirtan devotees, how there are people out there that are just, they're craving this information. And even in other countries throughout the world, we've got our BBT in the Muslim-speaking countries, or in Korea or China. We see the books are being distributed over there as well. So we shouldn't think that okay, we're insignificant. We're just one insignificant devotee who's trying to do a little something for Srila Prabhupada. But on a collective level, as a team, imagine what we're doing. The material world right now it's a blazing forest fire. And so, just like Srila Prabhupada gives that example of when there's a house or a neighborhood, just like we had our fires, they had those fires very close to here several weeks ago. Now, the fire was spreading very quickly. But even if people didn't speak the same languages, everyone, they assisted each other. They can all communicate the message that there's fire. And so, even if someone doesn't quite understand what it is that we're doing, if they see that we're convinced, and if they can see we're enthusiastic, then naturally they will take notice of what we're doing. And how many of us have distributed books before, all of us? How many of us have had the time where someone will walk up to us and say, I've been watching you from a distance. What are you doing? Now, they may not agree with what we're doing or have a complete understanding of what we're doing, but because of the enthusiasm and the confidence, then they're taking notice. And people watch, and people know, they can see by our enthusiasm that this is something that's different than something that they've experienced. I remember some time ago when we had a business. It was a temple business, and we would sell paintings. And I remember I went somewhere into an apartment to deliver some paintings. And prior to that, there had been some other devotees that came, but they couldn't make it to deliver it. So since I was going to be there, I went and I delivered it to Mrs. whatever her name is. And after we finished the whole transaction, she said to me, I have a question for you. I kind of felt like I knew where she was going to go with all this. She said, there's something special about such and so. I don't remember who it was at first. The second one, Richard, and that was Ram Roy Prabhu, who lives in New York and does the Harinam, who we were actually friends before we joined the movement. So he was the second one that came, and then I came to deliver. And the lady said to me, there's something different about the first person. There was something different about Richard, and there's something different about you that I recognize. Nothing that I've ever seen in other people before. So even though we didn't go in dhotis, we didn't go in shaved heads, but they could tell, this lady could tell that there was something unique, there was something special about us. And that's why it's very important when we're out in public, or even here, it's very important that we behave nicely, that people see how it is that we are acting. And they will see that we're something different. We have something to offer. We have something that other people don't have. Srila Prabhupada continues here. He says that when there's too many materialistic activities in people in general all over the world, there's no wonder that a person or a nation attacks another person or nation on slight provocation. So we discussed this, that's the rule of Kali, or quarrel. But again, this philosophy of Krishna consciousness can put out the fire of material existence. This process of Krishna consciousness, these books that Srila Prabhupada has written, there's so much value in these books, so much value. And even if someone doesn't get the opportunity to even take a book, but at least if they see a devotee, they have an interaction with a devotee, they hear something about Krishna consciousness, even they touch a book, their life is changed. These books are deities. And we've heard stories before how someone got a book and then it was sitting up on their bookshelf. And they would see the book and they would look at it. They wouldn't take it down off the shelf, but they would see it regularly. And then all of a sudden one day it's like they just go and they take the book and they open it up and they start reading it. And we just never know. Someone saw me with neck beads a couple of months ago and said, "Oh, do you have any science of self-realization?" And also I'm trying to get my hands on a Srimad Bhagavatam. So I got the person's address and I sent them the books. But people are hungry for this knowledge. Now, it may not be in the very beginning they have such a taste for it. Just like sometimes, when we're chanting, we don't have that taste. It's not there yet. Like when we start chanting. But imagine when we first started chanting, and then after we chanted for 2 hours, how you feel. Compare the two. Of course, we had a wonderful Mangal Arti. That was very ecstatic, very blissful. What a great way to wake up. Yeah, what do you Hare Krishnas do? We chant, dance, and we feast. Now, Srila Prabhupada writes in the beginning, let me just back up a couple of sentences. Srila Prabhupada writes, under the circumstances, transcendental literature like Srimad Bhagavatam, will not only diminish the activities of the corrupt mind of the people in general, but also will supply food for their hankering after reading some interesting literature. So in the beginning, they may not like it because one is suffering from jaundice. So there's a really nice verse in the Nectar of Instruction. Sya Krishna Nama Charidasi Tapta Vijja Pitopitasya Pitopatapta Rasanasya Narochikanu Kintvada Nara Anuridam Kalu Saivajusta Svadvi Kramad Bhavatitad Gadamula Hantri. The holy name, character, pastimes, and activity of Krishna are all transcendently sweet, like sugar candy. Although the tongue of one afflicted by the jaundice of a vidya, ignorance, cannot taste anything sweet, it is wonderful that simply by carefully chanting these sweet names every day, a natural relish awakens within his tongue, and his disease is gradually destroyed at the root. So jaundice. For those who have been to India, especially in the early days, it was typical that someone would get jaundice. And what was the remedy for that? Was to eat rock candy. And it wouldn't taste sweet. It actually would be very bitter. But eventually, you got the taste back. So by carefully, Srila Prabhupada, and this is actually Rupa Goswami, says in this translation, but Srila Prabhupada also says, carefully chanting, then the names, the holy names, become very sweet, and we develop a real taste for it. How many times have we chanted real ecstatic rounds, or maybe it's on Janmashtami and we've chanted 64 rounds, and you hang your bead bag up, and then you walk away, and you're walking down the street, or you're walking wherever you're doing whatever, and you start chanting. Even you don't even have your bead bag with you. So it is our goal here to give Krishna consciousness, to give these books to others who are suffering in this material world, in this age of Kali Yuga. And we see it. You just go right out on the street and you see that. Just try driving in traffic and people screaming at each other and yelling foul words at each other and cutting each other off. And, just listen sometime during rush hour. Just listen to all the horns. All over the place. People just beeping their horns because of the frustration and the anger. Change of heart, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport. This is the solution to all the problems in life. Not the medicines, medicine is important, of course, but as far as internally and trying to change our lives, we have to change our heart. And when we change our heart, then our external world will change around us. And so this process of Krishna consciousness, we're changing our hearts. We're purifying our hearts. Think about how angry you might have gotten in a situation, or how much envy you may have had in a situation, 20, 30, 40 years ago, maybe when even before you were a devotee, how, envious you might have been of someone. But now it's like, here we are, we're on a team, we're helping each other. We're ecstatic, we're excited to see someone else is dancing ecstatically in kirtan. We're ecstatic to see somebody being number one in book distribution instead of trying to pull that person down. No, we speak nice things about that person. Or someone does nice work in the kitchen. Great job, Prabhu. Look how nicely all those vegetables are cut. Or someone cleans the temple room so nicely. Or somebody is a great manager. Whereas maybe, 30 or 40 years ago or longer, we may have done nothing but criticize that person. And that's enviousness. So take note on how this process of Krishna consciousness, it's definitely working. So I'm not going to have any discussion or ask for any questions. It was a long purport. There was a lot to speak on. It's 8:20. I want to thank everyone for coming and being attentive in class today. I want to thank everyone on the internet for listening. And I hope you have a wonderful day in Krishna consciousness. Jai. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai.